Good morning, guys. We're going to read chapter 8 and 9 today. Chapter 8 is on Myron. So let's see what Myron's up to. Myron had big ears. He was elected class president. The children in Mrs. Jewell's class expected him to be a good president. Other presidents were good speakers. Myron was even better. He was a good listener. But he had a problem. He didn't know what a class president was supposed to do. So he asked, "What am I supposed to do?" "It's a difficult job," said Mrs. Jewells, "but you can do it. You must turn the lights on every morning, turn them off at the end of the day." "What?" asked Myron. "A class president, you must learn to listen," said Mrs. Jewells. "I'll repeat myself one more time. You must turn the lights on every morning." "I heard you the first time," said Myron. "It just doesn't sound like much of a job." "It certainly is," says Mrs. Jewells. "Without light, I can't teach, and the children can't learn. Only you can give us that light. I think it is a very important job." "I guess so," said Myron. He wasn't convinced. "Here, let me show you how to work a light switch," said Mrs. Jewells. "I already know how," said Myron. "I've been turning on lights on and off all my life." "Very good," said Mrs. Jewells. "You'll make a fine president." Myron wanted to be the best president ever, but it was such an easy job, he thought, that anybody could do it. When school let out that day, Myron stayed behind. He turned out the lights by flicking the switch down. "Excellent," said Mrs. Jewells. On his way home, Myron heard a horrible noise. First there was a loud screeching, then a sharp squeal, a roaring engine, and then the very faint sound of a girl crying. Myron ran to see what had happened. Dana was bent over in the middle of the road. "What's the matter?" asked Myron. "My dog, Pugsy, was hit by a car," Dana cried. "Who did it?" said Myron. "I don't know," Dana sobbed. "They sped away." "Well, that's not important," said Myron. "We've got to try to save Pugsy." Pugsy lay unconscious in the street. Myron carefully picked her up. He carried her 2 miles to the vet. Dana cried at her side. "Don't worry, Dana," said Myron. "She'll be all right." But he wasn't really so sure. He gave Pugsy to the vet, walked Dana home, then walked home himself. Dana was so upset that she forgot to thank him. Myron didn't mind. He thought that was what being class president was all about. The next morning, before he went to school, Myron went to Dana's house. Pugsy was there. She seemed all right. Dana petted her. Pugsy licked her face. "See, Myron, she's all right," said Dana. "The vet said you brought her in just in time." "Hi, Pugsy," said Myron. He petted her. Pugsy bit his hand. "I guess she doesn't know you," said Dana. "She was unconscious yesterday when you saved her." Dana's mother put some medicine and a Band-Aid on Myron's hand. Then she drove the children to school. They were late. They ran up the stairs to Mrs. Jewell's class. The room was completely dark. "It's about time you got here, Myron," said Mrs. Jewells. "We have no lights." "Why didn't someone just turn them on?" asked Myron. "Because you're class president," said Mrs. Jewells. "Show Stephen how to work the lights. From now on, he will be class president." Myron showed Stephen how to turn on the lights. He flicked the switch up. At the end of the day, Myron showed Stephen how to turn the lights off. He flicked the switch down. After a week, Stephen finally caught on. He made a good president. The lights were on every morning. Myron, who was president for only a day, was the best president in the history of Wayside School. It was just that nobody knew it. Chapter 9, Mauricia. Mauricia liked ice cream. She was sweet and pretty and could beat up any boy in Mrs. Jewell's class. Everybody liked Mauricia, except Kathy. But then she didn't like anybody. Mauricia only liked ice cream. Every day Mauricia brought an ice cream cone to school and kept it at her desk until lunchtime. At first she brought chocolate ice cream every day, but she soon tired of chocolate ice cream. So she started bringing vanilla, but she got tired of vanilla too. Then she got tired of strawberry fudge, ripple, butter pecan, pistachio, burgundy cherry, in that order. And then a terrible thing happened. Mauricia got tired of ice cream. By that time, her desk was a mess, and everything in it was sticky. Everybody liked Mauricia, but Mauricia didn't like anything. Mrs. Jewells hated to see Mauricia unhappy. "I don't understand it, Mrs. Jewells," cried Mauricia. "There just aren't any good flavors anymore." So Mrs. Jules worked all night. The next day she brought in a new flavor of ice cream for Marisha. It was Marisha flavored ice cream. Everybody will like it, thought Mrs. Jules, because everyone likes Marisha. Here you are, Marisha, said Mrs. Jules. Marisha flavored ice cream. Everybody gathered around as Marisha tasted it. They hoped she liked it. Marisha took a lick. Well, said Mrs. Jules. Marisha took another lick. Well, asked the class. This ice cream has no taste, said Marisha. It doesn't taste bad, but it doesn't taste good. It doesn't taste like anything at all. Mrs. Jules was heartbroken. Here, let me try it, said Todd. He tasted it. You're crazy, Marisha, he said. This is the best tasting ice cream I've ever eaten. Try some, Dee Dee. It's delicious, said Dee Dee. It's so sweet and creamy. She passed it around the room. Oh, it is so good, said Leslie. I don't think it tastes terrible, said Kathy. I don't understand it, said Marisha. I don't taste a thing. Mrs. Jules slapped herself in the face. Oh, I've made a big mistake, Marisha. Of course you can't taste anything. It's Marisha flavored ice cream. It's the same taste you always taste when you're not tasting anything at all. So the next day, Mrs. Jules brought in Joe flavored ice cream. Marisha liked it. So did everybody else. Joe thought it had no taste. Everybody liked Marisha. Marisha only liked Joe. The following day, Mrs. Jules brought in Ron flavored ice cream. Ron thought it had no taste. Everybody else loved it. Everybody liked Marisha. Marisha only liked Joe and Ron. By the end of the month, Mrs. Jules had brought in 27 new flavors of ice cream, one for each member of the class. Everybody liked Marisha, and Marisha liked everybody. They all taste so good, all except Kathy, that is. Kathy flavored ice cream tastes a little bit like old bologna. Everyone still agreed that Marisha flavored ice cream was still the best, except Marisha. She liked hot ice cream the best. This turned out to be a problem. Every once in a while, Marisha would try to take a bite out of Todd's arm in order to get that very special flavor. Chapter 10 is Paul. And you'll read that tomorrow with Mrs. Sidebottom. I'll see you guys later. Bye.